Ohio State is making moves on the recruiting trail as four-star running back Carson Baker secures an official visit.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. During today's show, we'll predict Ohio State's offensive starters in 2025, as well as some key backups on that side of the ball as well. But first, Ohio State is making moves on the recruiting trail as four-star running back Carson Baker secures an official visit. And anytime you can get a player of Carson Baker's caliber on your campus, on your own dime, to move closer to landing them on the recruiting trail, you got to take advantage of it. And with Carlos Lachlan being in the midst of this and him pushing very, very hard to get Baker at Ohio State, I think Ohio State fans should be very pleased and excited about the possibility of Baker joining Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class. Carson Baker was the only guy a year ago that Carlos Lachlan handed out an offer to during the recruiting camps Ohio State hosts every single summer. And I think this speaks volumes about Carlos Lachlan's pursuit of Baker, but also about the caliber of player Baker is too. Because Carlos Lachlan's not a guy just going to hand out an offer to give it out. No, you got to earn that thing. You got to earn the touches when you're being coached by him, and you got to earn the offer from him. Not just because it's Ohio State, but because Carlos Lachlan is different. Different in the way that you want your running back coach to be different. He pushes you very, very hard. He gets the best out of you when you're in that room. We saw that this past year with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins being that two-headed monster that Ohio State needed this year. Think about what would have happened if Ohio State was trying to have one guy get 20 carries a game while going up against an offensive line that was a little bit shaky at times and was hit by the injury bug over and over and over. That guy could have gotten frustrated. That guy could have said, oh, these guys can't block for me, and it could have been a disaster. No, neither one of those guys looked at the situation in front of them and said, this is a disaster. We're not going to get this done. No, they worked together. They were also very fresh. And I think the freshness of the running backs at Ohio State in 2024 is something Carson Baker looks at and says, if I go to Ohio State, they're not going to ask me to tote the rock 20 to 25 times, even though I'm sure he would love to tote the rock that many times during a game because, running backs want the ball in their hand. Anybody on offense as a skill position player, they want the ball in their hand. But then he looks at it and says, Ohio State has a formula. And this is not the first time Ohio State's used a two-back system in this way. A couple years ago, there were times that Mind Wills and Travion Henderson were kind of going back and forth. The unfortunate thing for those two guys, one guy was going when the other guy was hurt, and that was something that I think really slowed down the running back process and progress over the past couple of years before 2024 because the injury bug hit that room very, very hard. Well, Carson Baker is a guy that stands about 6'1", 195 pounds from Fairburn, Georgia, Langston Hughes High School, and that high school might be something where you're trying to think about a guy maybe at Ohio State that was from that same school. Well, you're correct. This is the same school that Jelani Thurman and former Ohio State quarterback Aaron Nolan came from. So there's a pipeline. There's an avenue from Fairburn, Georgia to Columbus, Ohio, that all Carson Baker has to do is just get on that bus and just roll out. Roll on past every other school. You got to go through Tennessee. You got to go through Kentucky to just roll on right through. Because Ohio State is a spot that would be a great spot for this young man. I'm not trying to say yes or no, I'm not going that route. And no, I'm not a guy we're thinking about a guy like Carson Baker to realize, well, if he verbally commits, he's not going to flip. It's a possibility. I'm not here to be negative. I just want to be real with you. Carson Baker's a real kind of guy, but I watch him play and look at him and think about his skill set. He has explosive speed, running a 10.65 and 100. Boy, that's moving. He also has great vision. He has a powerful frame. He is built for the next level, similar to James Peoples. When Peoples was in high school, you could look out there and say, oh, he's built for college football. Let's go back a little bit before James Peoples. Dallin Hayden, who is now at Colorado. When he was being recruited by Ohio State out of the state of Tennessee, you could look at him and say, that young man is built for the next level. And Carson Baker is too. So you're getting a guy that already has a frame, already has a physicality. He has great vision. And that's one of those things that popped off to me when I started watching him, watching clips of him play. His vision is phenomenal. And you could look at play after play after play and look at this young man and say, man, your vision is not like the other guys that you watch play high school football every Friday night in the fall. Your vision is not like some guys that even at the college level that struggle to find the open hole and be able to get their way through a small sliver in the offensive line. You do that very well, and you do it over and over and over again. But also that speed. And I think it was the first play I saw him. It was a run up the middle, had to find the hole. It was run up the middle, but the hole had to be found. He found it, got to the second level, and as he got to the second level, homie was moving and moving and moving. Next thing you know, he got to the safeties, and the safeties were even at one point, but then they were behind him, and they were just getting further and further away because Carson Baker's that kind of guy. Now, when it comes to this recruitment, this is going to be very, very interesting because Ohio State is battling with the in-state school of Georgia. They're also battling with other SEC schools in Kentucky and Texas A&M and South Carolina, and also Florida State. So when you think about Ohio State battling with Georgia, that's going to be expected. I think there's Georgia and Ohio State and Texas A&M might be the top three schools right now battling for this recruitment, but you can't count anybody out right now. It's early in the process. You haven't got on campus on an official visit. You've been on campus already for some recruiting camps and things like that, but you can't count anybody out yet. It's too early in the cycle. Ohio State only has 4 hard verbal commits right now in that cycle alone. You can't count anything out. Guys can be committed right now, and they could decommit and go somewhere else. Anything is possible. But I did see that there are 2 official visits that I could find the dates for that Baker has already scheduled. One is Ohio State. He's coming to Ohio State June 13th. On the following weekend of June 20th, he'll be at Texas A&M. And you got to realize when you get these guys on campus, you got to wow them. You got to do everything you can to win them over. I think back to 2021, maybe. I forget the exact year. But JT Tuimoloau flew across country from the Pacific Northwest over to Ohio on an official visit. Was it Tuimoloau? I know Mateo Uiagalelei. It was Mateo because I remember his dad being around on Twitter and talking about how Ohio State did some things to make them feel welcome. It wasn't Tuimoloau. It was Mateo. But I remember Ohio State doing some very special things for Mateo when Mateo made his official visit to make him feel very welcome. And there were some culture things that Ohio State did that weren't overkill, that weren't going overboard, but it was necessary. And the Polynesian community is a very big on family. And Ohio State realizes that. They're big on their culture. And Ryan Day and Ohio State did some phenomenal things to win them over. Ultimately, they didn't win the recruitment. Oregon won that. But Ohio State understands what it takes. And they have to go all out. And they have to do everything they can in their own power to do what's needed on this visit to win him over. Because you also realize this ain't going to be the last stop. He's going to go other places. He can take unofficial visits to any school he wants to. And Ohio State has to do everything they can to win him over. And I believe they can. I believe that they have the plan to. And the other guys that are currently committed to Ohio State in 2026, Chris Henry Jr., Jacob Weatherspoon out of Avon, Ohio, Jayden Ricketts out of Pataskala, Ohio. I always butcher that one. And then Corbin Fordham out of Jacksonville, Florida. Those are the 4 guys that are currently verbally committed, while Baker is a 4-star kid, a kid that number 18 running back in the class of 2026 via 247 Sports composite rankings. I think that ranking can go up. I wouldn't be shocked if he was a 5-star at the end of the day. Ohio State's offense has a lot of 5-stars on them, and some of them will start in 2025. And moving forward, we'll predict what guys will start for the Buckeyes offense in the fall. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For those of you that missed our reaction pod yesterday afternoon, reacting to Matt Patricia being hired as Ohio State's defensive coordinator, go out and check it out. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your fine podcasts. It's a bonus Buckeye Blitz style of episode, and you can get my initial thoughts on Matt Patricia being the Buckeyes' D coordinator moving forward, as well as some promotions that Ryan Day handed out in the middle of the week. One thing I love about Ohio State's offense next year is they can attack defenses in different ways. Similar to what you saw this year in Ohio State with Will Howard leading the charge, but I think a little bit different. I don't think it's going to be the same offense, some similarities, but I still think the defense can be a little bit more creative than it has been, not just last year, but over the past few years. And one of those things, those creative thoughts are going to come up in about 5 minutes or so. The starting quarterback, let's just start there at QB1. We all got the same guy probably starting for the Buckeyes at quarterback is Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin is a guy, unless something crazy happens with Leaky Kienholz taking a massive step up and jumping Julian Sayin in spring practice, which I don't think is going to happen. Julian Sayin is going to be QB1. He has the goods. I believe he's a better processor. He's a better thrower of the football. Just got to figure out the way to stay up to speed and to handle things at the rate that Ohio State needs him to. A full off season, getting him in for winter workouts, and then also spring practice, and then summer workouts and fall camp as well, getting his body right. All of that goes into him winning the job and earning the title of QB1 in the fall. I mention his body on purpose because homie is skinny. He is a very slender guy when you're thinking about someone who might be the starting quarterback at Ohio State in 2025. I think the same thing when I think about Devin Brown. I don't think Devin Brown is physically the kind of guy you look at and say, oh, you're a starting quarterback at Ohio State based off the look that you got. No, he was kind of slender too. But Julian Sayin is smaller. I think 9 to 10 more months or 7 to 8 more months, lost track of time, with Mickey Mariotti leading the charge and personalizing the plan to get Julian Sayin's body right. I think it'll be very, very big. Starting at running back, not going to do two running backs, just one. James Peoples. I could have done two and just done co-RBs like Ohio State had in 2024. We're not doing that. No. I think James Peoples is a guy, and if Ohio State needed him to tote the rock 15 to 18 times a game, I think he could do it. I don't believe you're going to see a split like you saw in 2024 with the running back carries. Henderson and Judkins kind of split time a little bit. Judkins, at the end of the day, did have more carries than Henderson. I think you're going to find at the end of the day in 2025, Peoples has more carries than the backup. Not going to say who that is just yet. And I think he's earned it. I think at running back, you can have all of the tools to play running back and to start at an Ohio State, but not be ready. And one of the traits you might be missing is being able to be elite in pass pro or just be good in pass pro. Not even elite. Ohio State had some elite pass protecting running backs a year ago. I don't know if James Peoples needs to be elite at it. I mean, got to be good at it. What does Ohio State have at receiver? Every receiver that gets on the field realizes they have to block every single time. You can't take a play off. You take a play off, you're not going to play. That's the same thing at running back. If you take a play off and you not just miss a block, but you whiff or you're not using your brain and you kind of slip a little bit, you are going to struggle to stay on the field consistently. And over the next few weeks and months, I'm looking forward to hearing reports and seeing James Peoples pass block. It's not the sexiest thing in the world. It's not getting the ball in his hand. But that's a big part of being able to get on the field as a running back at Ohio State, especially when Carlos Loughlin is leading that room. At tight end, we also got to move a little quickly. It's Will Kazmarek. I do think Will Kazmarek coming back and being that run blocking tight end that Ohio State normally has at their disposal is going to be huge. But I also think he could be a guy that could be a bigger piece of the passing game for Ohio State, especially when you compare his numbers to what they were in 2024. I think Will Kazmarek can propel this next year into him being, I don't want to say a day 2 draft pick, but probably an early day 3 draft pick if everything goes the way that it needs for him to get there. And I think it can. The issue is there's another guy in the tight end room that's going to take some catches from him that could derail him from being an early day 3 draft pick. But I think Will Kazmarek has the goods and the ability to get drafted in 2026, and he's the starting tight end for the Buckeyes next year. Going to go through the wide receivers next, and then go to the offensive line. Wide receiver, this is kind of easy. I don't have to say much about him. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Innis. I don't think there's any question at all. If you say that you may think Bryson Rogers or Mylan Graham is going to start a receiver, who are they replacing? That's my first question. If you say they're replacing Brandon Innis, why? Brandon Innis was the 4th receiver a year ago. Why do you think he's going to just all of a sudden lose his spot in the depth chart because he has another year at Ohio State? Doesn't make any sense. And it won't make any sense because nobody can make that make sense. I do think, though, with Ohio State's receivers, you could see Jeremiah Smith winning Biletnikoff. You could see 2 of the 3 being first-team All-Big Ten guys and the other one being a second-team All-Big Ten receiver because they're that good. The same thought I had about running backs and pass pro, I gave a little glimpse about that with the receivers and just blocking in general. Well, all 3 of these guys do that at an elite level. All 3 of them. Starting or in a backup role. Doesn't matter. All 3 of them do that at an elite level, which is why Brian Hartline put so much trust in them out there on the field every day of the week and twice on Sunday because of the way that they blocked. If you block, you're going to play. But you also got to catch the ball. But all these guys are 3 elite pass catchers. It's going to be fun to see what Jeremiah Smith does with Julian Sayin being the starting quarterback in the fall. It's going to be a lot of fun and it's going to be really enjoyable to see exactly how Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Innis even play off of each other. As Innis and Jeremiah Smith are on the same South Florida Express 7-on-7 team, so they have experience playing together. And that's just another reason, man. I just think about those 2 guys on the 7-on-7 team and then the fact that they're going to be at Ohio State with Ryan Day and Brian Hartline and Julian Sayin all together at one time. My goodness, it's going to be a nightmare for opposing defenses. Last but not least, the most important unit of any offense is the offensive line. And as odd as is it going to sound, I think going into 2025, the O-line will be more prepared for battle than they were in 2024. I'm even taking the sickness that those guys dealt with in fall camp a year ago. I think Ohio State's O-line might be one of the best in the Big Ten from week 1, and it has a legitimate shot to be one of the best in the country at the end of the day because of the depth, the portal pickups that they've received, and just to be able to overcome some adversity throughout the season and get some guys that were once not thought about being on the field, all of a sudden, like Luke Montgomery, they're starting in the playoff. Left tackle, let's go left through right. Now they're just going to go one by one. Left through right. Left tackle, Ethan Ananwa, who was a transfer from Rice. Left guard, Luke Montgomery. Center, Carson Hinchman. Right guard, Austin Saraveld. And then right tackle, Phillip Daniels, the transfer from Northwestern. All 5 of those guys have a proven track record of being able to get it done. Saraveld is, I'm going to say, a Swiss Army knife, being able to play right or left side. His better side might be left, but I don't know if Luke Montgomery is – I know he can move over and play right, but maybe his best side is left as well. And if that's the case, you just got to use that Swiss Army knife. Well, if 2 of you guys have the best side of being left, but the one if you can't play right, just put the other guy at right, who is the Swiss Army knife at Austin Saraveld. For Tegris Shabola, he is still in the mix, but I have a hard time believing he is going to win the starting job over the next 6 or 7 months. I have a hard time believing that because of what we've seen from Austin Saraveld, Saraveld's versatility, his grittiness, some of the shortcomings that Shabola had on the field. I just have a hard time believing that Shabola is going to win the job of being a starting right guard or right tackle in the fall. While knowing who the starters are, there are also some guys that are going to be key backups for the Buckeyes offense next season. We'll detail those next. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. It's great to have the defensive starters and backups, key backups already roll through, and also knowing who is going to be starting for Ohio State in the fall on offense too. It's going to give us a better picture about what the Buckeyes offense might be. And when I think about what the Buckeyes offense might be, we got to go back to the receiving position because one of the key backups, I believe, for this unit is Bryson Rogers. And over the past couple of years, I have been pushing and saying that Ohio State should run 4 wide receiver sets. Yes, I know there's a guy in the tight end room that could be a split out wide. It could be a 4th wide receiver, even though he's the tight end in that room, which that's a possibility. I think it'd be great. You could even go 5 wide with that guy and Bryson Rogers. But I think Brian Hartline should tap into more 4 wide receiver sets because a lot of guys can't defend it. Not just 4 wide receiver sets if you're just having an average passing attack or an above average passing attack. When you have an elite passing attack with 4 elite receivers, with 4 guys that will be drafted, some of them being top 10 or top 5 picks, some of them being first and second round picks, just tap into that bag and do it. Pull off that weapon and do it over and over and over. And it kind of reminds me, I don't know if it was a clip on TV or if I was watching something on social media. There's a clip from Varsity Blues, and the coach's name escapes me, but he got left in the locker room, and the team went out there, and they were doing their own thing in the state finals. And all of a sudden, I remember they changed stuff up on offense. There was a guy in the stands. The one out there was, wait, hold on. He's counting the players out there, receivers, like, hold on, 1, 2, 3. And he counted the receivers on his hand, and he's thinking, well, this is new. This is crazy. Well, it would be new for Ohio State to roll up there and have a passing attack with 4 receivers. It wouldn't be crazy, though. It would be a great avenue. It would be great for Brian Hartline and Ryan Day to roll out there and just use all your weapons. Don't hold anything back. Now, if you want to do something against Texas and then not pull it out again until the playoff, great. That's cool. I would understand why you might want to do that. At the same time, if you want to use 50% of your bag or 40% of your bag against Texas, but then wait to use the rest of it against other opponents down the road, I would understand that too. But I think the 4 wide receiver thing, you could pull that out against Texas because you got to, because you can. Maybe not because you have to, but because you can. Because you are able to dictate things that the offense might not like. Another way you can pull off some things that the opposing defense that the opposition might not like is Max Klare. And Max Klare is a guy at Purdue. He was one of the better pass catching tight ends in the Big Ten last year. His numbers are phenomenal. And this will give Ohio State more of that 12 personnel look where you can kind of have a guy at the end, but he's also a receiving threat. So are you going to be a little heavier on defense when you know you may line up someone over Max Klare that's better in stopping the run than he is at stopping the pass? But that's a chess match. This is the back and forth that we're going to see a lot this year between Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, and whoever the Buckeyes are playing, because Ohio State have so many weapons, and they have weapons that they haven't used before, or maybe not used as often as they should. And I think that Ohio State is able to do some things with Max Klare that was splitting him out wide and getting him one-on-one with an outside backer, or maybe one-on-one with a strong safety whose strong suit isn't stopping the pass, especially when going up against a guy in Max Klare who has a size and the speed that most tight ends don't have. It could be night. It could be a little bit of a Cade Stover, but he's better than Cade Stover when it comes to catching the ball. Some other key backups for Ohio State this year, one of them is C.J. Donaldson. And I think C.J. Donaldson, there is a possibility of him pushing James Peoples and that making that running back competition very intense. But I also have a belief that that's just going to make James Peoples work even harder and get even better. And Ohio State and Ryan Day love James Peoples. They love what he's bringing to the table. They love the things he's done since he's been in Columbus, Ohio. And there's no reason why you should think C.J. Donaldson should come in and just lay down and hand over that title of RB1 to James Peoples. But I think this could be a great 1-2 punch. It'd be a different look than what we got this past year with Henderson and Juckins, but it can be, once again, another great 1-2 punch where you're having two of the best, a running back duo that is one that's going to be fun to watch. The thing about Donaldson that I love is that he's had, in all 3 years he's been at West Virginia, he was at West Virginia, he ran for over 500 yards on the ground. In the past couple of years, he had back-to-back years of rushing for over 700 yards, and he almost had 800 yards last year. And those numbers speak volumes about him when he may be best suited for a short yard situation. Those numbers don't scream, I'm only good between the tackles when you need 3rd and 1 or 4th and 3. I'm not that kind of guy. No, he can be a guy that can go 3 or 4 or 5 carries in the middle of the field and tote the rock and be a big piece of the pie. Yes, he's about 235, and so the weight's a little bit heavier, and so you may think, oh, he may need a breather, but no, I think he can be more of an every down back in spurts, going along with James Peoples and the things Peoples does very, very well. Back to the offensive line, there are 2 guys that I believe are going to push for starting spots at Ohio State in the fall on the offensive line. One of them is Tegra Shabola, and I think Shabola's his best position is tackle. I've never viewed him as a guard. I understand the necessity of putting in that right guard, especially when you know your starting left guard going into the year was hurt. So while Sarahveld may have been the best right guard going into the year, Shabola had to be there because you had to put somebody at left guard, and you're not going to put Carson Hinzman there because the Buckeyes didn't believe he was the best option. I don't know why. That one still makes me scratch my head. But Shabola's best position might be tackle. And he's going to push whoever. Montgomery, he's going to push Sarahveld, he's going to push Daniels. He's going to push all of them to get better. I still don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to start. However, if there is someone banged up next year, he is someone that could be the first guy off the bench, either for either guard spot or maybe right tackle. I hope, and my hope is moving forward, Tyler Bowen, the new O-line coach, is going to work very, very hard with Shabola to move him to tackle. I think his best option is tackle. He's not the guy that I believe is great at battling with D tackles. Never, ever. I don't think he has that type of grit in him. I don't think he's that kind of mauler. I do think putting him on the outside is the best fit for him, but also you got to get quicker footwork and you got to get better hand placement. You got to get tougher. Like, regardless if you're playing guard or tackle, he has to get tougher. But Ian Moore is a guy that would be the starting left tackle or maybe even right tackle if Ohio State didn't tap into the portal to pick up a couple key players there, because Ian Moore is going to push people. He is going to push everybody on that O-line to get better, because if not, he can play guard. I think he's better fit at tackle, but he is someone that could be right there pushing a Nanwa or Daniels or Sarahveld or Montgomery to get better, because if they don't, he might jump them on the depth chart. Let's not forget Josh Padilla. Josh Padilla has been a backup center at Ohio State. He was Carson Hinzman's. Well, he went to the year as a third-string center, moved up to being the backup center once Seth McLaughlin went down with a season-ending injury. I think Hinzman has this in the bag. But if there's a guy on the offensive line that can push Hinzman to get a whole lot better, it's Josh Padilla. Because Josh Padilla, state champion wrestler, Josh Padilla is a guy that has a low center of gravity. He is someone that's going to come in and want to do that dirty work and want to lead the Buckeyes on the interior of the offensive line. He's not afraid of getting dirty. He's not afraid of getting his nose right there in the midst of the muck of being an offensive lineman. He's not afraid of any of that. Carson is going to start, but I believe Josh Padilla is going to push him to get even better. But you got to look at those backups. Well, I don't think they're going to be a rotation. I really hope they don't do a rotating guard situation in 2025. I think Shabola, Ian Moore, and Josh Padilla can push all 5 of those projected starters on the O-line to get even better. Thank y'all for tapping into this Thursday episode of Locked on Buckeyes. Almost said bonus. That was yesterday. In making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, let's get back on track. Tap into Locked on Big Ten, because my guy, Craig Sheeman, is the guy to put the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked on Big Ten on the YouTube or wherever you get your fine podcasts. You can follow me on social media, on any social media platform, at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. It's been Locked on Buckeyes here on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.